Hey, hi y'all. It is a very gloomy Sunday in Seoul today. Got a bit of rain, and I thought, you know what? Let's chat movies. So this is film wrap up for September. I watched 67 films. 67. I'm gonna format this a little differently. I have a couple questions queued up and some selections because I was just like, I'm not gonna go through 67 films. So we got some questions. Here we go. First movie you watched this month. First movie of the month. First movie that I watched this month was Together. Came out of this year. What's his name? Dave Franco and what's her face? Alison Brie. Both of them great chemistry. You have a couple that moves into a new home. With that, they find that there's this like secret cave altar that they fall into due to a rainstorm while they're on a hike, and then they end up having something come inside them and bring them together, and I'll leave it at that. Deep in its horror, but there's like brilliant funny moments, so it's a film that doesn't take itself too seriously in that regard. Just like really fun sicko moments, interesting elements of body horror, and to a very, very interesting end. I want to know more. I'm pretty sure there's an essay about it already, but why is it that contemporary horror films must ride on the glide of humor to sustain itself? Is that just a way of it not taking itself too seriously, or if it's just used as a marker to levy out the horror? I don't know, and I'd like to know, because let me tell you, I've been watching a lot of spooky movies this past month. It's just interesting to look at how plot devices are used in the films of like horror films in the 80s than say now. I think what it is like attention span is definitely one of them. I feel like a lot of horror movies in the 80s sustain character development and setup in the first 40 minutes or so, and then really dig into the horror in the last moments. But for horror films now, there's this like progression, but there are like comedic moments that happen, and that comedy has to happen. But what if it's not comedy? Does everything always have to be funny? And I wonder if that's something to do with like how we deal with things using humor now, or if that's just the way it is. And I'll get to that in a bit more later. But a good first for the month. Had a great time seeing this one. Last movie you watched this month goes to No Other Choice out of this year by Park Chan-wook. It is an adaptation of a Westlake novel called The Axe, and there is actually a film adaptation that came before this one out of 2005 by a French director. I thought this was fine. Usually I like his stuff, but this one I felt that his crossfades were just so bad. They just did not filter too much into symbolism, character developments, and plot work. Like, yes, one or two crossfades did like work really exceptionally well, but other times I was just rolling my eyes. I was just like, really? Really? I feel like he does it a lot better in his other films. This one is about a man at the top of his game, happy family, everything great going on until he loses his job. And with that, he makes sacrifices, his family makes sacrifices. There's less food on the table. The kids lose Netflix, just things like that. They don't have their extracurriculars. It's very, very much to a bare minimum. The wife gets a part-time job. Through all of that, he used to be part of this paper company, and he wants to get hired by this bigger paper company, and in order to do so, he kills off other competing applicants. It's a story about man and his worth, and how much courage is built in a man through his actions, and if his actions have consequences. It's dark humor at its finest. I think this is Park Chan-wook at like his funniest, but also his silliest. Lee Byung-hun is like at the top of his game here. He just does a wonderful balance of humor and drama so well. There's a dance sequence where he like glides really funny movements across the stage, and it's hilarious. It's like the best scene in the movie. Yeah, I just thought it was fine. I definitely felt its running time near the end because it just had a bunch of endings at the end, and I was just like, the film literally could have ended 20 or 30 minutes ago. And yeah, I just don't think it worked that well, even though Park Chan-wook has this like incredible way of storytelling so that there's a great levity to it. It works in waves. He just has like a great control over story when telling it. A lot of the emotions and the humor is sustained and is fine. This one was just fine. Sorry to disappoint for anyone excited about this film. Best movie that I watched this month goes to Scream. Yes, yes, I said that. I just finished Uncanny Valley Girls by Zafira Lazowski. In that, there was great mention of Scream and how it's an inherently queer film. The writer, Kevin Williamson, is gay and really wanted to write a film about queer escape. There's there's a bunch of essays about why queer people are always so attracted to horror films, and I think it's having to deal with a lot of the body horror, the gory bits, literally running away from things. It always feels like that, honestly, especially when you're much younger. Anyway, I had seen scenes of Scream constantly, and I always knew about it through like Halloween costumes and such, but really actually from Scary Movie. It was like weed high Ghostface that I actually knew of before actual Scream. And it's been a while since I've seen a Wes Craven film, and this just made me so sweaty. Just like all the chase scenes, the jump scares, the stabbing, so fine-tuned to a point where everything matters. Every scene matters, every line of dialogue matters. It's just a sharply written, scary film. And it subverses the genre itself. Right from the beginning of the film, it mentions and name drops a bunch of horror movies and creates and builds up this horror film within itself. So there's something incredibly meta about it. The ending also plays with horror tropes, subverses it, and just does it in this devilishly funny way. And it works. It really does work. I think Wes Craven's direction as well just like maintains a beautiful tempo throughout the film and just like had my heart racing. I just haven't seen like a good scary movie in a while. I've just been watching a lot of like B horror stuff, but nothing that has like really jumped out and scared me. But this one did it. Definitely understand why now. It's a classic. Worst movie that I watched this month was Weapons. God. Why did I waste my time with this one? With its runtime, you know what it is? It's a prolonged joke that never ends up hitting its punchline. And when it does, by the end of the film, I just like rolled my eyes. I was just like, is that it? The whole film is just set up. What it is essentially a specific class in an elementary school just goes missing, and through private home cameras, the families see that the kids ran out of their homes at a very particular time in the AM. And with that, it follows different character point of views to really structure the story. But even with that, I think it just takes too long for where it needs to get to, and with such poor payoff. But when you think about it, ultimately, it's just a very, very long setup, and it's just not worth your time. And there were funny bits in here, and again, with like horror and comedy, why do both have to be so inherent with each other to really flesh out a story? Somebody tell me. But this is one of those prime examples of that. And I've noticed that a lot with some recent horror films as well. I'm thinking like Oddity, if anyone's seen that. And yeah, I just think it's quite trite. New directors on my radar. I have two. I recently watched They Eat Scum out of 1979 by Nick Zed. Part of the gonzo filmmaking that happened in the early 70s in New York. He reminds me a lot of like a very young, angsty John Waters, but without the humor. It's very like bizarre humor. God, to talk about what this film is about, it's about a bunch of radicals, part of a punk band, that try and take over, brainwash New York. In the end, they don't succeed, and they get graped by a giant roach. And I will leave it at that. It's a very bizarre film, very like DIY amateur film, and it's just crazy sometimes to think about like films that were made years ago and just stay hidden under the rug. But I like his sort of gonzo filmmaking. It really makes me miss making films with my friends, or just that anyone can pick up a camera and make a film. Should everyone do it? I don't know. But it's fun to see what's out there and in time, what has tried to preserve itself. Another one is Body Fever out of 1969, Ray Dennis Steckler, who I think has become one of my cherishable favorite directors in that I love how earnest he is. This is definitely one of those like schlock films from the 70s where this is essentially Inherent Vice, just done more earnestly. Love PTA, love Pynchon's writing. I never finished Inherent Vice, the book. I only half read it, but from what I remember, I enjoyed it. I thought PTA's adaptation of it was just fine. It wasn't that stellar. But with this one, this is only 78 minutes. 78 minutes, it does the same thing that Inherent Vice does, just done more earnestly. It has all the lines that it needs to say, it has all the scenes that it needs to provide, and it's done in with like a definitely lower budget quality. Steckler himself directed, wrote the film, and starred in the film. Yeah, it just works, and I just love that. There's this like earnestness also to Steckler's direction and just his storytelling. It's just a very simple Inherent Vice that just works, and I just love that within its own running time. I believe Inherent Vice is like 2 hours. Too long for what it is. Same with Pynchon's book, too long for what it is. But here, Steckler gives it to you in 78 minutes. 78 minutes! Love a good, fast movie. Give it to me straight, okay? I'm gay as fuck, but give it to me straight. What movie do you think is underwatched? Out of this Out of this month, I watched They Shoot Horses, Don't They? Out of 1969. I need to remember who the director of this is. Okay, it's by Sidney Pollack, who also did Tootsie, if you needed to know. But God, this was so good. It's at the height of the Great Depression. A bunch of contestants dance for this marathon that goes on for months. It offers a cash prize of $1,500. And it's the most nauseating, dizzying experience I've ever seen. It's just a bunch of Americans at their wits' end, just wanting that money because they need the money. And it just rips everyone apart, every single American ideal, every single hard-working American individual, and it comes to a very like fuck you ending. It hurts. It's a very brutal watch. It is the original Squid Games, Hunger Games film. Jane Fonda in this, incredible. She just like has a speed to her, this velocity that is both desperate and vicious, and it's just such a fine example of why she's such a great actress. Loved her in this so much. I'm feeling classic. I've got 2 here for you. I have 3 films here. I watched His Girl Friday out of 1940. It stars somebody that I don't like. What's his name? North by Northwest. Who are you? Oh, what's his name? Cary Grant. Oh, Jesus. Still unbearable. I cannot stand Cary Grant. Put him in color, put him in black and white. This is a black and white film about a newspaper publisher that wants to keep a specific reporter on his team. And by doing so, they end up in this like warped crime thriller of sorts. It plays in its progressions of dialogue. It is very much like a stage play, and it's just very quippy, funny, brilliant overall. Just great performances. To talk at that velocity, to upkeep humor in that way is just incredible. Yeah, I never felt bored throughout any of this. Still can't stand Cary Grant. I don't know what to tell y'all. If you like Cary Grant in a movie that is not North by Northwest, let me know. Okay, another classic is the Parallax View out of 1974. What is his name? I watched a movie from this director before, and I like his work. Is it Kluk? Yes, Alan J. Pakula. Yes, he did do Clute. Surprisingly enough, I've never seen All the President's Men, and I'd like to do that at some point. Also, Sophie's Choice. Have not done that at all. Yeah, what a great, like, paranoia political thriller. I think some of the staging in here is just done so brilliantly. There are, like, brutalist structures and just use of, like, shadows and space that just creates this incredible world that you cannot trust. But it's about a man who's running from a bunch of people who are trying to kill him until he becomes a killer of sorts in his own investigative journalism. Through all that, he realizes that it all belongs to a government cult that just offs people. There's this like really brilliant brainwashing scene of just like American images mixed with everything that glorifies America, but also everything that demonizes it. And it's so effective. in the paranoia that it creates. It's a very claustrophobic film, but also done on such a grand scale. I think a little too long for what it is, but I just loved getting lost in this world. And I love a good paranoia political thriller. Ooh. Another classic is Panic Room out of 2002, David Fincher. I've watched moments of this, but never in full. It was one of those like TV movies that I always found to be a classic, but very, very good. Holds up very well. Jodie Foster and guys, I cannot do names today for some reason. I'm so sorry, y'all. Kristen Stewart. That was a close one. Both incredible. Also, for cinema, to give us like two homegirls like that acting together, cinema at its finest. Yeah, just a great use of sustained suspense. What happens when you buy a house and find that there's a panic room and there's a shit ton of money being hidden in that panic room. Some burglars come in, try to rob you. How do you stay safe in your own home? Yeah, there are like really cool maze-like moments in here throughout the house where it'll go through stairs, pipes, walls, and it just like the choreography of the editing and the cinematography is just so well done. And I mean, that's why we love Fincher. He creates such a tight and suspenseful movie that it's just top notch. Yeah, and a classic for a reason. Okay, spooky recommendations. Really 3 good ones here. Let's Scare Jessica to Death out of 1974. It's about a couple that moves into this house by way of a hearse. And it's just like really like wacky 70s sentimentality mixed with this like very claustrophobic interior horror where this woman is constantly talking to herself in monologue, but to herself. And through that, they come across this hippie vagabond, a girl, very cute thing, very manic pixie dream girl, disrupts the harmony, the flow of this couple. And with that, it develops into this story of the undead. And I'll leave it at that because I think part of the fun is figuring out what is actually happening. So good. I just love how claustrophobic it is inside the self, but also the actress in the film, our main lead, Zora Lampert, just has one of the most vulnerable performances I've ever seen in film history. I don't think we gave this woman enough credit for like portraying such a vulnerable woman, one who experienced grief and also just like depression, anxiety, and having to deal with it all. Her performance just feels so deep and true within that. Love this lots, and I think it's definitely underrated. Another one for you, Soul Survivor, 1984. A woman survives a plane crash. She is the only one to survive. With that, she starts experiencing moments with the undead that are trying to kill her. But why? Just the way that this progresses is much of a slow burn. It's so effective in that it's the kind of film that creeps under your skin, mostly because it's set in suburbia. You think that like the suburbs are safe, right? I think a lot of 80s films plays with that. But here, the suburbs are so quiet and the horror itself isn't so scary or menacing when the undead are attacking her because they just look like normal individuals. So in its like low budgetness, it entirely works. But yeah, there's just like this ringing, unsettling feeling throughout the entire film to the very end. I just love the way that this develops because it's definitely one that like goes under your skin, clings on, and doesn't let go to the very end. And, very surprising, Psycho 2 out of 1983, Anthony Perkins returns. He gets out of jail, and the murders continue to happen. But how are they happening? I think this film works so well because of one person, Tom Holland, the writer. He had to answer a very big question. How do you create a sequel that didn't need to be written, such a classic, under such a titan, Alfred Hitchcock? How do you do that? And what I think he does so brilliantly is instead of creating something that feels like a true testament to the original, he subverses it entirely. He sets it within the 80s. The Bates Motel is for sex, drugs, alcohol. It's just one of those like ratty motels that people use for one-night stands. He plays into the sleaziness of the times while also still developing Anthony Perkins' character, Norman Bates, as someone who is still mentally unwell and is still committing more murders, but But on top of that, there's this like incredible mystery thriller that's happening as well. And so there's this great juggle of three different things going on that work so, so well. I want to say this is the most underrated sequel to a horror movie that I've ever seen. I knew that they existed, but I held off for so long because I was just like, what is the point? Why does one need a sequel to Psycho? Like, it's already a perfect film in itself. Why remake it? Goose Van Sant, which I also watched this month, and it was awful. But yeah, why? And I was delightfully surprised. This was really, really fun. Really, really good. Highly, highly rec. So fun. Movie that made me laugh the most has to go to Party Monster out of 2003. So we have one of the Culkin brothers and Seth Green in here. It's about the New York club scene. Totally queer, totally radical, totally made for disco. It's about rave music, it's about clubbing, it's about being gay, and being incredibly proud of it. Very flamboyant, and there are just a bunch of one-liners here that are just incredible. It's gay humor writing at its finest. It's just endless. Both Seth Green and Culkin are wonderful in this. They never lose sight of their banter. It just goes on and never loses steam all the way to the very end. And yeah, just love this a lot. I've been meaning to get to this for like the longest time and finally happy that I did. God, I wish I could be this witty and smart when it comes to one-liners. And yeah, there's just, in terms of like joke source material, this one's filled with it, and I could just rewatch this film over and over again. Movie that made me cry the most goes to 3670 that came out of this year. I don't think it's getting released in America anytime soon. I think it's still going through festival circuits, but coming to you soon, I'm sure. This is about a North Korean defector that goes into the underbelly of Jongro. And if anyone doesn't know, Jongro is another part of the gay community outside of Itaewon. Usually more for like gays in their 30s, people who want a stronger sense of community. But there's still like a strong hookup culture there, so. Anyway, it's the heart of desolate lone gays, but also like gay ajishis. And through that, he develops this friendship that becomes totally romantic. And what surprised me most about this film was that because it was romantic and because it's gay, there wasn't really a penetration scene. I feel like with any gay film, I don't know, any gay literature as well, we always have to find sex. We always have to have sex in a book or in the work. But here, there's actually none of that. I think there's only one blowjob scene, honestly. What I love also about this film is that I've been to every single club/bar mentioned in this film. It's just like crazy to see it all on screen, like places I've been to. Because I used to be big on that, like seeking out film locations and visiting them, and it's just fun to like be on site of what's part of fiction but is part of reality. Here it hits stronger because it's like that was part of my reality, coming to my own identity here. Yeah, I thought it was like beautiful and sweet. It definitely plays into very much like a K-drama as a film, but I think there are just things in here that just resonated so much with me. And yeah, it's one that I've like thought about every single day because of just like how difficult it is to be gay in Korea, but also just like how difficult it is to just be gay. Yeah, and unattractive and having to deal with that. Like, how do you deal with being ugly when the standards are so high? Let me tell you, intellectualism does not get you anywhere. Just saying. But if you do get the chance to see it, go see it. It's wonderful, and I think just like a more accurate representation of queer life in Korea versus Love in the Big City. Because fuck that book. I did not like that book at all. I think it was just such a trite way of portraying queer folks in Korea. This film did a much, much better job and a more authentic look at the queer experience here. Next, movie that surprised or shocked me has to go to Nanami Inferno of First Love out of 1968. Japanese film about a boy is molested at a young age and in turn becomes a molester of sorts, and in part of that tries to come to terms with himself, coming of age, his sexual identity. And the whole film starts out with a very Holden Caulfield Catcher in the Rye moment where there's that scene where he goes to a hotel with a prostitute and they're just chatting it up, and that's how the film starts. And with that, there are just like moments that fall into dream sequence, harsh reality, that just creates this like very strange levity to the film. It's incredible because the director himself used to shoot like documentary things more for like commercials and stuff. So it was just interesting to see this as like a stronger narrative piece. But in the end, it's more of a stronger internal meditation on individuality and identity with moments of sexual repression that shocked me mostly because it made me feel so uncomfortable, but not in such a gross way, but in this like, I don't know, like angelic dreamlike way that I was just like, whoa, I've never felt this way about a film before. But yeah, there's just like this constant ghostly quality throughout the film that shocked me. I don't recommend this. It's a very, very uncomfortable watch to sit through, but one that has continued to haunt me. I'm all for that. Because I don't, what does John Waters say? I don't need a feel-good movie. I already feel good about my life. I need a feel-bad movie. And I'm so glad this made me feel so bad. Most beautiful movie I've seen this month goes to Opera by Dario Argento. Watched a few other Giallo films this month, and I just feel like I didn't give enough credit to Argento when I said that Fulci was a better Giallo director, and I was just like, wait, I said that? I don't know if it's actually true. Let me look at other Argento works. And this one was so good. Mostly because I think it's Argento's most Argento film. We have opera. It's set in an opera house. Of course, there's a murder. We don't know if it's cerebral or if it's an actual murder. But just like the costuming in this, the set, the horror, it's just so beautifully done. It sits in the grotesque and it's beautiful. Definitely thought the end was very, very corny and campy because it's just our main lead frolicking in the grass near the French Alps, I believe. And the murderer finds her there. And anyway, yeah, I thought this was just fine for what it is, but it is definitely a gorgeous, gorgeous film. There are incredible moments like her getting encased in a glass box, needles being taped to her eyes so that if she shut her eyes, she would, you know, bleed tears. But the murderer makes her like be witness to all these other murders that are happening in this opera house. Just like great uses of light, neon lights, you know, the usual Argento Giallo mood. And yeah, it's just such a fun Argento picture. Beautifully orchestrated as well. Like crows flying in an opera house. So good. So good. Yeah, really dramatic, really theatrical. And again, that's why I think it's an incredibly Argento film. Anyway, did you watch anything you liked in the month of September? Let me know. I always love adding a movie to my TBW. Let me know if you like this format. Let me know if there was a question that I should have asked, but I didn't, as a prompt. But so let me know. As always, be well, do good work, keep in touch.